Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back on this beautiful spring day here in Finland. The sun is shining, it is just tremendous. I don't think the sun has shone this nicely in the whole year. So after this video I'm going outside and I'm just going to enjoy it. But anyway, let's talk about TrackIR, shall we? That's the point of this video, and I did promise all of you guys, once I've got used to the TrackIR, once I've played with it for a few hours, actually not a few, countless hours by now, I'll tell you guys what I think about it and so forth. Now, I hesitate to call this a full-on review. Although I'm using the TrackIR by Natural Point, this video is pure about whether you actually need a TrackIR or some kind of tracker. You can build them yourselves, in fact, and whether it's required for your experience when you're flying a sim game. Now, when you are going to be using these TrackIRs, you are probably going to be using the free software that comes from Natural Point alongside the actual tracker. You can download it from their site, and if you self-build your LEDs and you have your camera self-built as well, then you can seamlessly use that setup with the software. Now, I have of course bought the TrackIR that is on sale for roughly, I don't know exactly the price, depending on your region of course, but it was roughly 160 euros. I would presume that means it's maybe 140 quid in the UK, and I don't know, maybe 170 bucks at this point. I don't know, you'll have to check in the stores that stock these kind of equipment, or on Amazon or something. However, you can of course, like I just mentioned, build it yourself. Now, I'm not going to go into the discussion what is better for you, what is worse for you. I think everybody can make their own mind up whether they have the ability to build one themselves. It's not that hard actually if you look at it, but if you have the equipment and so on, or if you just want to buy one. So yeah, this won't be a discussion on, should you buy one or should you build one. That's up for you to decide. Now, after having talked a little bit about the TrackIR, I'm going to move on and give you guys kind of a tips on what I've experienced with the TrackIR and how to set it up. Not give you a 100% guide on how to do it, but a couple of tips that I've learned with the different games that I've played, and also to do a little bit of troubleshooting with the software, because initially this is of course new to you. You don't really know how to operate the profiles and to check where the problem lies if your selected profile might not work. So let's get into the meat of it all then. Is a TrackIR needed? Now, my opinion is that a TrackIR, whether built or bought, greatly helps you fly your aircraft in any sim. Just thinking about it, it is obvious. You can concentrate with your hands on your stick and maybe operate a few keys on your keyboard if required for flaps, maybe gear and so forth, cockpit closure. Now, if you would be using keys, for example, in a game for viewing as well, then your left hand most likely is going to be occupied with viewing and operating buttons such as flaps or even bombs or rockets and so on. So it can take a little bit away from it. That being said, I have flown with keys in Cliffs of Dover, IL-2 Cliffs of Dover, and in Battle of Stalingrad. And although it's harder to set up in those games than, for example, in War Thunder, it is doable. So if you don't have the money to buy a TrackIR, or if you don't want to lay down that much money just yet because you don't know if it's for you, or if you probably going to self-build one in the near future, then you can always try out those games with the keys. It does take some time getting used to, but once you do, it actually works quite well. That being said, once I changed to the TrackIR, I think my efficiency, so to say, that's a weird way of saying it, but I think it went up by, let's say, 20%. Simply because I could do everything I did before with the keyboard with my head, and I didn't have to think, okay, I now have to press this button, this button, this button, and I didn't have to fine-tune anything with my keys. Sometimes with keys it's very hard to get that exact spot that you want to look at, and with a little bit of practice with a tracker, that actually works quite well. That being said, which kind of games require you to have a tracker? Now, as I said, I've flown Cliffs of Dover and Battle of Stalingrad with keys. And I gotta say, in those games, it's probably better if you do have a tracker. It just feels to me that it's somewhat more, not only just more immersive, but those games also thrust you into the simulator community where most people have a tracker and they do very well with it. And it's hard to describe, but it just feels better. Not only Do you feel like you can concentrate with your arms, with your hands more on your stick and the keyboard, or when it comes to the flying part? But also, just quick head movements give you that immersion that you have in a game. So not only will your flying will probably be a little bit better, but at the same time you also have a more simulatory, that's a bad word, but now it's a word, simulatory feeling. What about DCS then? DCS is going one step up from Cliffs of Dover and Battle of Stalingrad. Now with DCS I have tried to fly with keys, and I gotta say it does work as well, but if you are going into DCS and if you have made that step, because DCS is pretty much the high-end, so to say, high-end simulator there is out there at the moment, then you will probably have a track IR anyway, and it really does feel, with DCS it really does feel that the game has been set up and programmed with track IR in mind and not really with key viewing. It is once again possible, but not too good. What about War Thunder then? Most people are probably concerned about War Thunder. Now War Thunder is a game that I've, to 90% during my sim time in War Thunder, I have played with keys. And I have made a guide on how to set up your keys for viewing, and I'll link it down below in the description box as well if you want to have a look. And I gotta say, with War Thunder, a track IR is not required. That is my full-on opinion on that. It is, of course, possible. It works fine with a couple of tweaks, but it is not required. Like looking at War Thunder and then looking at Cliffs of Dover, Battle of Stalingrad, DCS, I would say War Thunder with keys, absolutely no problem. Then you move on to Cliffs of Dover, BOS, and then DCS, and then I would say just get a tracker when you go for Digital Combat Simulator. But War Thunder, I've always done fine with keys. It works really well. In fact, I'm actually surprised how well it works in War Thunder. And yes, that is a positive thing that I can say about War Thunder. War Thunder has done this control issue with keys in Simulator Battle quite well. It works. It works really well. Now, before we move on to a couple of tips when you set up your profile, I just want to mention two things, because it's probably going to pop up in the questions below. First of all, should I use my mouse as a view option in games? And the second is probably going to be, can I use my my little hat stick on the joystick for viewing? Both of them are possible in most games, but I would very much recommend against it. Let's talk about the mouse first. You are, of course, going to fly with your strong hand with the joystick. So if you're right-handed, you're going to fly with the right hand. If you're left-handed, you're probably going to fly with your left hand. If you are going to have the mouse in your, let's say, weak hand, it's going to be really weird operating both at the same time. Yeah. You're probably also, I've tried it, and what happened with me is that when I used my stick to make a right curve, for example, with my aircraft, I would also just move my mouse. I think with a little bit of practice you can get it down, but considering that your mouse probably doesn't have more than 5 keys and you have to make it in your weak hand, it's not always going to work perfectly well. In some games, probably don't have many view controls when it comes to the mouse, or it's a little bit tricky to set it up. So the mouse is not a recommendation for me here. It is doable maybe in War Thunder. Again, you've got to just get your head around it, but then I would just say, leave the mouse aside and just go for keys when you're doing it at War Thunder. What about the hat stick? Now the hat stick is of course operated, or at least usually operated with your thumb, and it does work, but here's the problem. That thumb, for example, on the Logitech 3D Pro, also operates 5 more keys. And you never want to be in a situation where you look around, and suddenly you have to use one of your keys and you look in the wrong way, and yeah. As well as that, you're using the hat stick in the same hand as you're using the mouse. So once again, you have to wrap your head around opposite movements sometimes. Yeah, you have to move your plane to the right, but you have to look to the left. And, that it does take some getting used to. I've never, and maybe this is my fault, but I've never really gotten around to using a hat stick properly. It never really worked for me. My brain just doesn't function properly on that stage. So my recommendation really is, if you don't have a tracker, try to get it you're working with keys, especially in War Thunder. and once you go on to Cliffs of Dover, Battle of Stalingrad, you've probably made your mind up about these games anyway, and you like them, and you like simulator games. And after playing those games for maybe 20 hours or so, you've concluded whether you want to stay in those games or not. And at that point, you can tell yourself, right, you know what? If I stay here, might as well go the whole way and just get myself a tracker. Okay, now let's move on to a couple of tips here. I've basically written 3 of them down, and the first one is that you should not use a pre-made profile. Now in TrackIR, in the software, once you fire it up, you can see that you can customize your profiles, and on the web and on YouTube there's a lot of people saying, no, just use my profile, it's the best profile there's out there, and so on and so forth. Wrong. You know, those profiles are the best that are out there for that specific person. You gotta remember here that everybody's different. Your distance to your screen or the TrackIR camera is going to be different from that person. Your size, whether you are high in your chair or not, naturally your size is going to be different. Whether you're slouching in your chair or if you're sitting upright is different. Whether your head movement is the same, probably not. You know, some people have very slight head movement. Some people joke around a little bit more when they use a tracker. So don't use a pre-made profile. No matter how much this person tells you that this profile is going to fix all your problems, it's not true. Set up your own profile. You can use that profile perhaps as a sort of guideline, but I would recommend against it. Make your own profile. Fly in these games. Fly simulator. Battle on just a training flight. And set up your own profile. Try to look around, try to simulate kind of battles, make those curves as you like them, and then once you're going on into the battles and you see any kind of problems, then adjust. Don't trust a TrackIR profile that has been made by another person. It is, it's not their fault for giving you something wrong, because they're not giving you something wrong, they're giving you something that is correct for them, but it's just incorrect for you. So you gotta invest a little bit of time tweaking that TrackIR profile for yourself. That is also the reason why I'm never going to give you guys my TrackIR profile, because it's useless, guys. It really is. As much as you might think against that, it is useless. Trust me. Now the next tip is that you should use different profiles for different games. For example, War Thunder, and a couple of my viewers have pointed this out as well to me when I told them that I was getting a TrackIR, and that is, with War Thunder, for example, it is highly recommended that you disable the zoom axis on your tracker, on that specific profile. That is the nice thing about the TrackIR software. You can have different profiles for different games. And having the zoom axis in War Thunder, it's weird. It feels like it doesn't work correctly. I've used it in the beginning. I was like, wait a minute, people told me I shouldn't be using this. Maybe try it without, and I used it without. I just had a key for my zoom. It's the R key, which is just above my F key for flaps, so it's perfect for me. Both are next to each other. Then there's the G for gear, of course, and I just use the zoom key there. And I have a pre-made zoom, like everybody else. It zooms in at a certain distance and it zooms out immediately again, and that works. So I'm giving you the same recommendation that I got for War Thunder. Disable the zoom axis when you're using your tracker. Now for Battle of Stalingrad, this is my next tip. If you're flying Battle of Stalingrad, you have to scale your pitch axis quite high. Because when Battle of Stalingrad, when you look up, somehow it doesn't work. Usually when you have, when you, for example, take your War Thunder profile and you apply it to Battle of Stalingrad, everything else works fine, but the pitch axis has to be scaled a lot, so you can actually look up properly without being blocked there. So that is also a recommendation I have there for that specific game. Also, when you're using your profiles, make sure that you set up a button that stops your TrackIR from working, for, let's say, like pausing it, and one that puts you back to the default view. This is very important. For example, on my Logitech, button number 5 and 6 set up for this. 5 pauses the TrackIR, so the view stays where you last had it, and 6 resets it to basically just facing forward through the sides. And that is sometimes very important, because you move around, you look around, and suddenly you go back to that position where you thought you were centered on the crosshair, but actually you're looking a little bit to the side, and then it's annoying if you then have to shift your head around, try to find that perfect spot that you had before. Just press that button and it resets you immediately to the view that you would like to have. And one very important thing here as well, I have bought the TrackIR with the track clip. not with the Track Clip Pro. The reason for that is because I've been told by a lot of people that own the Track Clip Pro that it's very, how shall I say, it's very weak. It breaks easily. It just chips apart when you put it down on the table too hard and so on. Usually I'm somebody who takes great care into his, into his hardware, but there's always the risk of an accident, and when that thing breaks, well, you just wasted like 30 euros. So the track clip that I have, it's made of this kind of bendable metal steel. It's very sturdy. I actually had it fall off my cap once, flying through the room, and nothing happened to it. It was a silly, weird moment, but yeah, it didn't take any damage. It's very sturdy, bendable as well. So it can absorb a shock, wherever the Track Clip Pro apparently can't. I've never used the Track Clip Pro. Just putting that out there. I'm passing on the recommendation that I got. Now the last thing I want to talk about is troubleshooting. And when I got my tracker, I had quite a few issues. Those issues were not profile related, those issues were not software related, those issues were not hardware related, those issues were not even related to my head movement. Although, give yourself time when you're trying out a tracker, give yourself time to actually get used to the whole thing. It usually takes a week until you have the head movement down and you don't make any radical movements. But the one thing that threw me off is reflection in the camera. And I'm going to show you guys exactly what I mean. Alright, so when you're in the software, you will be seeing something like this. Now, I'm just loosely holding the clip in my hand here. And as you can see, I make a couple of movements here. And this is how it usually works. Now, the problem sometimes comes into the fact that the camera doesn't just recognize the clip, but it recognizes other things. And to make sure that you don't have this problem, I gotta go to display up top left here, and you go to camera view. And then you see this. And this is what the camera registers. Now sometimes, as you saw right there was a little red dot, and the camera picks up stuff that it shouldn't. If the sun is shining and your blinds are open, then it might be that the camera registers stuff from there as well, from the sun. So I'm just gonna check if I open my blinds, if the camera is gonna register something. No, actually the sun is not too strong this time, but that doesn't matter because I have something reflective here. Now, imagine just behind your screen you have a mirror or something metallic and something that is just over your shoulder. And suddenly the camera recognizes different things. I'm holding a little metal box here. And as you can see, if that is in the background, sometimes the camera picks up something that it shouldn't. And it just can't focus properly anymore. And that was my problem initially. I have Chrome layered headphones. And my headphones would sometimes be recognized by the tracker. And I just couldn't do anything. My view would just go crazy. And I had to put, sellotape around my Chrome layered headphones. I also heard that people with glasses sometimes have this problem. So you might want to have a check there as well, whether your glasses reflect some kind of light into the camera. But as you can see, with this kind of interference, the tracker just doesn't work properly. And once I put that box away, there we go. Everything works fine again. So when you're setting up your profile, or if something doesn't work, if your view goes all over the place, check your camera view, check that nothing is in the background that might have a problem. As you can see, sometimes I have this little flicker. That must be one of my Chrome headphones here, because I'm holding the tracker right in front of my face here. So yeah, every time I move my head a little bit, there's probably a little bit of a shiny thing coming in between that I have to cover up, or that isn't covered up properly. So yeah, have a look at those things as well and make sure it works properly. For me, right now it works. But it took me some time until I figured this out, to be honest. And I probably wouldn't have figured it out if a friend hadn't told me that I should have a look at this camera screen. So very important. Check what your track IR is actually picking up before you go into a game. Or, even if you have some kind of problems, just check that this is not the issue. Because you might be fiddling with your profile for days and days and days and not understanding what goes wrong, when the problem was always that little metallic box that was over your shoulder. So make sure you don't waste your time on those kind of things. So that is basically all that I have to say about the tracker as a product, or as a self-built product. It does work very well once you get used to it. Give yourself a little bit of time, of course. It's not going to be something that you learn within 24 hours. Give it a week and you'll have it. Make sure your profiles are set up properly. Always fiddle with them until you're happy. Make sure there's no kind of reflective stuff in the background that could throw your TrackIR off. And as a conclusion, I gotta say that I'm very happy with it. I like it a lot. The TrackIR and the money that I spent for it, I'm fine with it. Of course, like I said at the beginning, it's a personal choice if you want to build the thing or if you want to buy it. I bought the thing. I'm not angry that I've wasted a couple of euros on it. I like it very much. And I've known people that have also self-built their thing. They're happy with it as well. So, you know, whatever floats your boat, do what you like best. And if you already own a TrackIR and you still watch this video, you know, put down your own experience down below. Tell us what you think. Give a couple of tips yourself for specific games that you might be flying and so on. And tell people about it. And yeah, as always guys, thanks for watching. Have a great day, good hunting, and see you in the sky.